This is so hard. Like I can't.
Basically what happened was I was in a peninsula, and basically I was blocked out of it like
Things are
so I was just like screwed.
I wasn't trying to be
But I got so much by then.
But I really think
And I was friends with all the cities nearby. So basically, even though I didn't have a large standing army, I could just upgrade all my existing units and I could just take their units. Right?
I don't like having a
I'm putting the volume on this higher.
And you get some like defensive bonuses and you don't even need to worry.
Even playing with in college for a while,
Okay.
what ends up happening is the level spams units almost manually. Like shit.
Oh,
And
so
I have
it's
like
like super long.
it's like super long, and I have like two. I have 2 units, and I'm just like done.
Yes,
And
that's
then,
like the
like,
beginning.
The first day I learned this,
Yeah, I'm going all the way down.
I just
Holy.
Not if you're doing like
Now I know
culture,
what it is.
right?
Also,
So if you're doing culture, you're like, there's another point.
I'm right I keep it up.
No, I don't even worry about production.
No, I got the no,
I won't be critical for you whenever like great
Oh yeah, and then just
That's all great.
that's what I just heard.
Yeah.
Now I know. Actually, we're not based on two. Oh,
I did have already done. I have
It was just like starting, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah,
No, it was,
Basically, I like.
Oh, yeah, it's not. One challenge is that you're coming in, you need to take it. Yeah, I mean, I just. Okay. Yeah, well, like, just like,
When I took
don't
class, I
worry
was
too
just
much, just
so
like,
much
you go through
Yeah.
the cycle.
It was long. It like the better part of the day.
Bill.
That's why I checked and
It'll be like the part
Now we
of
just
the
all said pass.
No, the C course was nice.
Can you just scratch it?
Like,
I don't know. I like it. Is that regular, but it's just, it's boring. My first meeting is fine.
Hello, welcome.
Have
Have you slept?
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's great.
It's my first lecture today, so.
All right, that's not bad. So you have 3 or 4?
Oh, it might be.
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. I think 16. Still missing some people. Let's give them some time to show up. How's everybody doing? Did that homework take super long time? No? Okay. When I saw 8 things, I was like, oh dear God, this is going to take everybody forever. So I'm glad it did not. Oh, 6518. Okay, so I will say this again once everyone's here, but I'm recording this particular class, just this particular session, for 2 reasons. The first is there have been many times that a student has come to me and said, like, I know how to program, but I don't know HTML. Can I learn it quickly somehow? And the answer is always like, well, kind of, yeah. Every resource that's out there to learn HTML is like, clearly HTML is your first language, so let's get started with like, how do you put things in a text editor? And it's like, come on. I don't want to do that stuff, just tell me how to make the website. So today's just going to be like I know how to program, I know what hierarchies are, that sort of thing. Now let's make sure we understand HTML, CSS. Because it's actually not a very hard concept, there's like one hard thing, and then that's it. And so hopefully today we'll get just like either a reminder or a rough start with what it is, and then throughout the course of the term we can flesh that out. Cool. Thinking about our calendar, we've got Design Challenge 1 due tomorrow. So that's your homework for tonight. I'll talk to you about that at the end of class. And then tomorrow we're going to do a little teeny tiny bit of JavaScript. And then next week we'll do a bit of SQL, and then we'll get started with the back-end stuff. So databases, Heroku, Git and GitHub, making servers, that kind of thing. Cool, so that's the plan for the next week or so. Anybody have any questions from that incredibly long list of stuff in the homework? Yeah, no, just eye scratch. Okay, I am super excited to report, as I started to look through, that the survey results, there's a lot of varied interests in a lot of different things, which is great. I was really worried that everyone's gonna be like, I want to do Node, leave me alone. But like people have a lot of different interests, which is cool. I'm really excited about that. I've done nothing against Node. I mostly use Node when I do servers. So, cool. Mostly just stalling to give people time to show up. They haven't yet. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. I'm missing one definitely. I don't know where 6 is. Okay. So let's do it. So for the beginning, you may use a computer totally, or you can just watch, and then we will maybe after that get started with like definitely following along with your computer. And we're going to do some HTML. So the first thing to know about HTML is that it is the way in which you structure the content of your website. Okay? So you've got HTML, which stands for hypertext, markup, language. And so it's a markup language. It's a tool for marking up your content, your syntax, that sort of thing, right? So I want to make a website and I want to make that particular word bold. That's a tool for HTML to do. Or I want to take these 4 things and I want to group them together so that they display in columns. The grouping aspect of that is HTML. Okay? Now, making the actual columns appear, that's CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets, which is like a really weird name. The cascading part is important, that we'll get to in a second, but like, it should be like language or something like that, but it ends with the word sheets, which never made much sense to me. This is the structure / the content. This is the style / display. And together, display. And together you've got the actual web pages. And then the last piece is JavaScript, which is how you make them interactive. Okay, cool. The basic structure here is you have a tag, and you've got tags and you've got elements. So for example, you might have a P, and this whole thing, get some colors, this whole thing is, this whole thing is called an element. In this case, it's a P, or a paragraph element. And these little doodads here and here, these are typically called tags. Okay, so you've got a P tag, you've got a closing P tag, and you've got the whole P element that contains the content inside of it. Yeah? Okay, cool. Notice I've got sort of like beginning parenthesis, ending parenthesis. Yeah? Notice that I can, if I have beginning and ending parentheses, I could nest them, right? I could have open, 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 close, open, close, close, open, close, close. Did you do that? 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 0. Yeah, good, good. The idea here is that some of these nesting things contain, some of these elements contain other elements, or are contained in other elements. All right, and so I have this sort of like, that's number 1, that's number 2, that's number 3, that's number 4, that's number 5 in terms of opening parentheses. Then 1 contains 2 and 5, and 2 contains 3 and 4. Okay, and I would maybe call this a, oh, I always forget to do this, hierarchy tree diagram, whatever. All right, so whenever you have something that's structured basically via opening and closing parentheses, it is in a hierarchy, right? It's ordered hierarchically. And so that means that you can kind of like draw the tree. This is what I want you to imagine in your head when you're doing HTML. That picture, all right? So I've got, so if I go up and I just open up a new, yes it is, yeah. If I make a new CodePen. So the idea behind CodePen is it's a website where you can just like put in some HTML, put in some CSS, and just like boom, here it is immediately. And it's so much faster than like, oh, let me make a little index.html file, and I'll push it up to GitHub, and I'll make it a GitHub Pages thing. And it's just like a fast way to just play around. So for example, I can do like a p hello class /p, and then I'm going to get that appearing on my document here, right? And if I just make a few of those, another element that you can have is header elements, title of my document, /h1. There are, I'm going to turn my lights off. Down. Maybe this one's off, yeah. So there's multiple kinds of headers. There's header 1 all the way through header 6, and so header 1s are the biggest. You should only have one of those on your page, is the actual header of your actual page, all the way down to header 6. You can have as many header 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as you want. And so the important thing to keep in mind here is that this is starting to get a little bit broad in terms of the options. There are many, many, many HTML elements. There are many, many, many HTML tags that you can use to create elements with. It is not worth it for you to memorize essentially any of them. It is almost always faster to just Google something real quick. How to make an image in HTML. There will be like an incredible list of topics for that. Okay? So that's an important part of today, is like, I'm going to teach you all that stuff. Right? You can make unordered lists, you can make ordered lists, you can make tables, you can make all kinds of stuff. Like, it doesn't matter. Look that stuff up. All right? If you want to make something in HTML, just Google it. That's a very broad knowledge base, and it's not worth our time. The one thing that is super, super important is that websites are, just like HTML is hierarchical because it's nested parentheses, websites are hierarchical because knowledge is hierarchical. It's really hilarious. If you go to the Wikipedia page for hierarchy, I always spell that wrong, but if you go to this is amazing. Is an arrangement of items in which, blah. Somewhere on here, I'm probably not going to be able to find it right now. Somewhere on here it basically says like, hierarchies are the way that all knowledge is stored by human minds. Like, what? It's a crazy statement. I don't know, look through it, see if you can find it. But it is fascinating stuff. Let's go to like, I don't know, NewYorkTimes.com. You can see this, and you can immediately see, what is this giant thing on top here? That's weird. It's probably going to be an ad. It blocks some ads, so there's probably supposed to be a big old ad here. But when you look at this, there's clearly a hierarchy here, right? So there's like a box that's holding all this stuff in here, and like these different things are all kind of together. There's a picture here. This is clearly relating to a jet and confusion. And so like these clearly go together, and that's like a title for that thing, or like a caption for that thing. So when I think about how I might visually arrange this stuff, you are really secretly thinking about a hierarchy, right? There is a box which holds all these things. Inside that box, there's a bottom, and then there's a top that has 2 columns. Inside of this left column, there's a picture and then some text for that picture. Over here, there's a title, like an H something, and then some text. Yeah? So you can imagine, like, in your mind, drawing this. There's like a box. We'll talk about boxes in a second. And then underneath that, there's like 1, 2, 3 more boxes. And then underneath that, there's like an image and a thing. And over here, there's like a title and a thing. If you want to visualize that for a website, you just inspect the website. So if I am in Firefox or Chrome, and I right-click or 2-finger click and go to Inspect Element. And you get all of this stuff, right? So when I look at this, see if I can go up enough to get to that. I'm going to lie to you, aren't I? There it is. There it is. Even more. Even more. See, so when you're looking through all of this, I've got this box here. It's actually secretly that one, this one here, that contains all of this information here. And I can kind of look through on my site and play around with that. And if I, like this box here contains those things. Inside of that, there's an article. Inside of that, there is a link. Inside of that, see there's the header, right, in H whatever, yeah? And then if we go down, then there's a P that has the actual paragraph text. So you can kind of just play around with this stuff and find it. Cool so far? All right, so rather than figure all that stuff out on our own, let's just play with a whole bunch of HTML, okay? So get out your computers and go to our Canvas page for today. And then for classwork, there's just this index.html that's here. So copy all that into a code pen, and then we'll see what it actually looks like. We don't need this and this. Okay, so this is my super awesome website that we're going to make together. So I've created a whole bunch of content, and now I've got like images that are way too big and like a bunch of stuff. And I want to show us, let's see if I can find what the finished product should look like. So if I go to here, and then I go, what is this? It's this one. So I go to GitHub, go to that one. You know what I can probably do? This is what we're aiming for. Still not amazing, still like a little ugly, but the idea behind it here is like it's structured and we can kind of understand how to lay stuff out from this. All right, and this should include most of the examples that we want to create today. Cool so far? Okay, so, and then so like over here you've got like things that you can hover over, that's so cute. All right, so how are we gonna do this? The first thing you see is that this content has been grouped into sections. Right? And the main tool you use for grouping, like the actual elements that I feel like you should definitely know in the world of HTML are P's, the various H's, H, 1 through 6, and then the last one that's super important is the div, div. Okay, and so what is a div? That is the actual box that holds stuff together. All right, and so you can group things together using a div or a divider. People typically call them box. I don't know why. And then so this is what we're aiming for, yeah? We go over to here, we definitely don't have that. So the first thing we need to do is we need to calm down these images. They are like a little bit too big right now, so that we can make them a bit smaller. So we're going to go over to our style sheet and shrink all the images, just temporarily. We'll make them the right size later. So how do I do that? What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, images, like where are the images? They're right here. It's this IMG thing, yeah? There's IMG, that's right here. So we're going to tell all of those to get smaller. So hey images, and then curly braces. And then what do I want to tell them? I want to tell their either their width or their height to be small. Okay? So let's just start by saying, hey, why don't you set your width to be 100 pixels. So this is the basic formatting of, it's a little bit bigger here. Make it too big that we're not going to see the actual site. So this is the formatting of CSS. You give it what's called a selector, which will find something on the page, like an image. And it will find all the images, and it will perform the following style changes to them. What is it going to do? It's going to set the width to 100 pixels. Cool so far? That's the basic format of all CSS. Okay. The next thing we need to do is we need to group these things appropriately based on what our final product is aiming to be. So our final product, again, looks like this. And so notice that the logo and then the blog about nothing, they kind of go together. And so let's put them together. We'll group them together. All right? And then we'll style that all as a unit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to here, and I'm going to find that's this and this. It's this image tag, and then this h1 tag. I'm going to put them together into a div tag, which will block them. So now they're a unit. So I do a div in front of it, and slash div below it. And then typically you would indent these one click, just to make sure that they're all kind of lined up. That changed everything. It looks great now, right? Doesn't change anything. So a div will group them, and then you can style that div accordingly. Okay? So let's start by cheating a little bit, and we're going to style all divs to have a background color of I don't know what color is this. We inspect it. We can go down to the color here, and it's this value. Oh no, it's this value apparently. Okay, great. Yeah, beautiful. With me so far? Remember, this is not necessarily yet about like making beautiful stuff, this is about how do you get to that point. Okay, so I can't read the text anymore. What did I want it to be? Looks like I want it to be white. So let's, or not white, it's like this weird gray color. So we want to change that here. So I'm going to change it, separate them with semicolons. I'm going to change the color, that's the font color, to be RGB 203, 203, 203. Okay. Great. Let's take a second and individually group things accordingly with different colors so that we get to this picture here. So go through and you're going to need a div for this, a div for whatever, however much this stuff is, and then a div for this here. Find those 3 divs, ready to go. Just working for everyone's computer, okay? Question. I'm sure it's going to be a question from the group. Did you have a question?
I did.
What was the question?
My question was, what was the A href equals?
Yeah. What is the A tag HTML?
A link.
It's a link. So I click on this. This W3 Schools, by the way, is like an encyclopedia of knowledge about web stuff, so that they're always a good place to go. So here's an A href, and it's a link. It's a thing that you can actually click on to go from one area to the other. So it's super important stuff. Yeah. Okay, so did you make your 3 divs? So I'm going to probably have a div here. Div, whoops. And that's going to end like here. Slash div, don't forget the slashes. There we go. And then another one here. Again, this is looking so beautiful, right? Go down, go down, go down, go down, go down. Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay, so that goes here. Slash div. And then I'm going to have div. Go down, go down, go down. Probably all the way to the bottom, I think. Then actually there's already a slash div. I think that's curious. Cool, great. Yeah, grouped it? Now there's a problem here, which is that all the divs are colored purple. Yeah? So let's try to change just the, I don't know, just this one that has these images here. Oh, the image is dead, that's cute. Just these images here, and we'll see what we can do with that. All right, so let's just change only this one. So when I look here, this is coming from which div? It's coming from the div that has the images in it that are links, right? We go up here. It's this stuff. So let's take a look at this HTML here. So I've got an A. We just said that those are things that you can click on and go to somewhere else, right? And so I've got an A and a slash A here. Inside the slash A, so A, href equals a thing, image, and then a slash A. So it looks like there's an A, and inside of that is an image. So that means I made an image that I can click on, right? Because A's make whatever's inside of them clickable, like go to that link kind of thing. All right, cool. And so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of those, and so this is the div that contains those. I want to change just that one's color. So there's a couple ways you can do that, but for now, what we're going to do is we're going to give it an ID. ID equal, let's call it, I don't know, button links. Okay, and the reason we're doing this is because remember, the first thing that goes in your CSS is the selector. And so you want to select appropriate things and style those things. So right now, over here, we're styling all divs to have a certain color and background color. We may not want to do that. If we want to target just a single thing and change its styling, then we can give it an ID and then target just that ID. So the ID is like a name, and it has to be unique. All right, so what if we went down here? We want to do button links, but that's not going to work. We need to tell it, hey, this thing is an ID. And so the way we do that is with the hashtag. By the way, this was the original use of the hashtag. This is where hashtags actually came from, it's IDs in CSS. Okay, and what are we going to do with this? Let's make it background color, whatever it should be. So this guy's background color should be, go up to that guy, background color is that, right there. Okay. Okay, so notice, this is kind of interesting. So all divs should have a purple background. But the div that has this as its ID should have this sort of beigeish background. So what won? Right, this is two commands to color the background of that div, and one of them won. Which one wins, the ID or the div element? The ID wins. So there's an amount, so some of this is more specific than others. Right? If I say style all things this way, except, oh, not that this particular one, do it in a different way, whenever I'm being more specific, that rule wins. Okay, so it's not like I get two colors and they mix or something like that. There's an order to this. And that's the idea behind the cascade in the cascading style sheets. All right, let's see another example of that. Let's go up to the top of our CSS and we'll style the body. Whoops, not the body, the body. So the body holds everything. All the content on your website is contained in the body. And what we're going to do to this body is we're going to change the font. And so what fonts is this using? This is using sans serif. And so we're going to go font, family, sans serif. When I do that, notice what is this? This is what element? It's an H something inside of the div, right? So I've got a div and then an H1 inside of that, and his font family changed. So that's the cascade part. So somewhere in this whole HTML document, I've got the body, and then inside of that I've got some div, and then inside of that I've got some H1, and all the styles I got applied to this apply to all of its children as well. So that's the cascading part. That's the least specific though. So if I then say, hey divs, style your fonts to be a certain way, hey H1, style your fonts to be a certain way, then H1 would win, because it's the most specific. Good question?
I was just wondering if there's a setting or something to turn on to have it autocomplete while you're typing.
Yes, there is. Is mine auto-completing?
Yes.
So you can, once you have an account, you can go to settings and play around with that stuff. Yeah, totally. With me still? Okay. What's another change we need to make? There's all kinds of them, right? The next thing that I have, there's some like horizontalness going on here, so that's kind of interesting. And this background needs to change here. Let's change this background. Oops. This background here. And so maybe, let's see. So this is kind of interesting. So I chose specifically with an ID, I chose this one, and then I colored it with this background color, right? But I actually want to apply that background color to multiple boxes, not just one. And so what I would love to be able to do is go down to this div that's holding all this stuff here. Where's that one? That is this div right here. Yeah, line, currently for me, line 31. So I'd love to give that one the same ID. I'd love to say, hey, your ID equals, whatever I called it, button links. But that's maybe not a very appropriate name anymore. That's fine, we'll do it for a second. Button links. All right, so we did it. Life is good now, right? Oh wow, why did it work? Shouldn't have worked. It's weird. Curious. Okay, I was about to yell at you and say, didn't I tell you that IDs have to be unique? And so you shouldn't style things twice with the same ID. For some reason, CodePen is making that, is like cleaning that mistake up for me and just like applying it to both of them. So typically you would use an ID if you want to target a single thing for a single rule. If you start to say, like, actually these two are both kind of together and they both should get a name, that's when we use a class. So classes and IDs are both names so that you can style them appropriately. Classes are for a class of things, and so they're used for multiple stuff. IDs are used for single use. Alright, so typically in this situation, I would maybe change this to class, and I would maybe call it, I don't know, something other than button link content. And so you target classes with a dot. And then I go over to here, this is yelling at me because it wants me to save it. Change this to class equals content. Okay. Life is good. Our blog looks wonderful, right? Okay. Now, one of the things I'm noticing is that a lot of this stuff is pushed right up to the edge. Right up to the edge. And so we might want to add some padding in there. And so in order to do that, let's maybe go to our devs and we'll give them some padding. I don't know, how much padding should we give it? Not a lot. There's 10 pixels apparently. Great. 10 pixels. And now I have some padding. Notice that those just kind of got blended together when I did that. I have 5 pixels here. I go back to 0 pixels. Then there's like, these two are different from each other, but they're getting kind of smashed together when I do 10 pixels. That's kind of interesting. Not sure what's happening. But there's still 2 boxes here. Okay. What's another change we need to make? Well, this text is now gross. Let's fix that. Color is black. Okay. Let's deal with the fact that these are just kind of boom, boom, boom. There's nothing horizontal. It's all vertically spaced. All right. We now need to kind of make things be kind of flexing out sideways. So there's many ways to do that. There's the old school way, which is horrible, and I don't recommend you bother to learn it. That's with like floats and clears and things like that. The best way I think to do it is to understand how a tool called Flexboxes work. So we're going to understand that. Okay. So yeah, let's get rid of this. So whenever you have to make things spin in a certain direction. Like, for example, if you want to make 3 columns, that's super cool. Man, magnets. If you want content to set kind of spaced out vertically or horizontally, but kind of like spaced off along an axis, you want to flex along an axis, then what you're going to do is you're going to give the container the property of display flex. And then you can give it all kinds of other CSS properties that are related to this world. This is a whole world of flexible layouts. And the nice thing about that is then it will do things well when you like go to a mobile device or things like that. Okay, so let's do it. So these 3 divs here, 1, 2, 3, that's my 3 horizontal divs, need to be inside of a parent container. And they're not currently. So I'm going to put them in a parent container. Alright, so I'm going to go up to here, and I'm going to say div, and I'll call it ID equals parent container for now. Go way down to the bottom, and give it a slash div. Then I can go hashtag parent container, and I'm going to say display flex. And that's going to tell me that it's going to display flexibly. Already, it's kind of going nicely side to side, yeah? And I'm going to also give you background color white, because it was kind of sitting funny there. Cool. So there's all kinds of things you can do with this. You can say like flex, look at all that. flex direction row. It's already default to that, so it's not going to do anything for us. You can say justify content. The things that you can do here are you can care about how you arrange content this way on the sort of the flex axis. You can care about how you arrange things on the, I don't know, alternate axis. And that's something that's really important to keep in mind. When you say flex direction row, you're saying that you're flexing along the row. So you're going to lay things out along the row. You're making columns, basically. Right? When you say flex direction column, you're making interesting rows, and so your alternate direction is your horizontal direction. So justify content has a whole bunch of properties that it can take here. And I don't remember what they are, but the ones that I really like are space between and space around. One of the things that you're going to do for homework eventually is you're going to star or favorite bookmark the following website, Flexbox. This thing here. And this tells you everything you need to know. So with this, you can lay out everything. You can do everything you want to do layout-wise with Flexbox, which is why I like it. You can do cool things with CSS Grid in terms of it, like as opposed to Flexbox, but this is, I think, more universal. So you can change the flex direction. You can change how it wraps around. And then, so this is justify content. So this is telling me how I want things to be laid out along this axis. So I want grouped in the middle, center. Do you want space between them? Do you want space around them? Do you want even amount of space in between them all? Do you want them to be at the start of the flex or at the end of the flex? Those are your options. And so I think I did space between, which means any extra space here is going to go in between them. Then there's another option here, which is align items. And so let's do align item stretch for a second. Let's see what that's. Align items stretch. So when I do that, oh shoot. Okay. Now they're all the same height, which is not what's happening over here, but that's okay, I like it better. Almost there, yeah? So there's some extra white space over here, which I find a little bit curious. Let's inspect it and see what it's coming from.
I think it's the pattern, because it's the div.
Yeah. So this div here, you see, when I highlight this, look what's happening. Right, I can get some good information from this. So I'm highlighting the div that has an ID of parent container, and what is it telling me? It's telling me that this right here, this dotted line here, is the actual content location. And then this actually up here, this purple space here, is the padding of it. And so we pushed it in because that one has padding. So let's remove the padding on our parent container. So I'm going to go down to parent container, and I'm going to say padding 0. And that should hopefully go away. And there it goes. It's gone. Still with me? So you see how you, like, if you want to change something, you typically would just like inspect, figure out what's going on, and then change the thing accordingly. Okay. The order of these is weird, right? It goes this, and then this, and then this, whereas here it goes the links, and then the content, and then this like sidebar thingy. So that's interesting. We should move that around. How do we do ordering here? So ordering is this. So we have 1, 1, 1, 2, 3. So you can give them some orders here. -1, 1, 2. So the only thing we want to really do is give that list of links over here an order that is bigger than 1. I think the default order is 1 and all this stuff. So if we go over to this dude here, which is, I think it no longer has an, I think it's this div that no longer has an ID. I'm going to call ID equals button links again. And then we go hashtag button links. So notice like all we're doing right now is just continuing to adjust until we get what we want. I'm going to say order is 2. Let's see. Oh, that did not do what I wanted to do. Button links, this is not button links. this is the thing I wanted to call, like my navigation or something. Content. This is button links, yeah? There it goes. So I've rearranged them. So what did I do? I found the appropriate div that I wanted to move, and I looked at my complete guide, and it's telling me I can play with the order of things by shifting them around. And so the default is 1, and so you can give them any order that's bigger than 1, and they'll go later. So we're getting there, right? Questions so far about any of this, HTML or CSS? The key important points are the nested hierarchical nature that should match the hierarchical nature of your data, the actual thing you're trying to display, and then you use CSS to style it appropriately. And then if you really take the time to understand this flex stuff, you can lay out anything however you want with it. Cool? Let's do a little bit more. I don't think it's super important to do everything perfectly. But let's do these images. Because these images on this, like, this looks really silly and it doesn't look wonderful, but one of the things it's definitely doing right is that like the images are kind of like nicely aligned and things are kind of spilling around it accordingly. So let's see how we do that. So if I go to this image and I inspect it, and I look through it, what properties it has float right and display inline. So let's try adding a float right and see what happens. Right, whenever you have something that happens to you, so let's maybe go over to image. Oh no, not image. That's a particular one. This one right here. So that is an image, which is it's this one here. It's that book cover, O'Reilly static, O'Reilly book. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give that a class of right, or maybe right image. And then we're going to say float right. That way if I ever want to give it, oh look, there it goes. That way if I ever want to make them a bit bigger, or sorry, if I want to float another image, I should also give that a class. Yeah? So let's make that a little bigger. How big is it over on our website here that we're aiming for? It's got a width of 200 pixels over here. So I'm going to give it a width of 200 pixels. Does it work? It does. It will become bigger. So this is again the cascade happening, right? Because at some point I told all images to style a certain way. I told all images to have a width of 100 pixels, but I told this one that has a class of right image to have a width of 200 pixels. And so the thing you want to keep in mind is, in terms of the ordering, is that like elements are like the least important, and then it styles classes, and then it styles IDs, and then within elements it's styled hierarchically. Okay, so if you have a div that holds an h1, you style the div a certain way, you style the h1 a certain way, and you give it a class, and you give it an ID, and you change all 4 properties, the ID would win. If you don't have an ID, then the class would win. If you don't have an ID or a class, then the h1 would win. If you don't style the ID, the div, sorry, the ID, the class, or the h1, then the div styling would win, because it's the only thing you can style. Right? So larger parental holders in the hierarchy, those get styled first, and then down the tree, down the HTML tree. Then once all that's done, the classes get styled, and they would override stuff, and then lastly the IDs get styled, and they would override stuff. Right? Cool. Now this image here, this D3 logo, when I go over here and I look, what do we know about that? It's floating left, and it's also got a width of 200 pixels. So the thing that I often see students do is they'll say like, okay, left image, float left, and then I need to make its width 200 pixels as well. Right, so let's go down to that image.
There's a column missing.
Thank you.
On the left edge.
Oh yeah, great, love it. right here. So I'm gonna give this a class of left image. And then that's gonna look great so far. It's approaching the thing we're aiming for. Now I've kind of done something a little bit silly though. Having the two classes is great. Having a left image class is great and a right image class is great. But what is some thing that I've done in those images that's the same? The size of them. Is it important that a right image has a certain size? Or a left image has a certain size? Right? Being a left image or a right image as a name suggests that it should just be dealing with the left or the rightness of it. Right? And also I'm duplicating myself here, and I want to avoid duplication if possible. So really the way that I should do this is I should have a collection of classes, one for like the size of the image inside of the content of the blog, and another collection of classes for like whether it's left or right floated. Right? And it's fine to have more than one of these as long as you're being like super descriptive of stuff. So I might have like dot content image. And I might take this width out of here and put it here, and out of here and put it, oops, whoa, that was bad, out of here. So now I just need to give these multiple classes, and you can give these multiple classes, that's totally fine. How do you do it? You separate the class definition within space. So I'm going to do this, and content image. And that's going to be appropriately sized, and then this needs content image here. So you should really be kind of paying attention to content image. Like use the targetedness of the selectors to your advantage. So that now if I want to change the size of all the images in the content, I can do that. Or if I want to change the size of all the left images, I can do that on their own. Because all left images should be slightly smaller or something like that. You know what I mean? But just changing all the sizes of all the classes doesn't make sense. When you can have that all be kind of brought up to a different class or brought up to a different hierarchy or something like that. Yeah?
If it's a right image and the content image and you have different sizes in each, which would be?
Awesome question. I have no idea. I think it's whichever one comes last. So I'm going to say width. So this is a right image and then a content image, and it did not change its size. But if I were to make this 200 and this one 500, it would change the size. So it's whatever class comes last in the
HTML.
In the HTML here, yeah.
Okay.
No, yeah, not the location here. I think doesn't matter. Oops. I think that doesn't matter. Right? Wait. Oh, am I wrong? Right image is 200. Content image is 500. Which one won? The 200 won, right?
Yeah.
So it means the CSS ordering that matters. That's fascinating. Where's that new thing? But I mean, like, if you're doing that, then that's probably an indicator that you're doing something wrong anyway, so you should be careful with that.
We're doing what?
If you are worrying about the ordering of the classes and how they're applied, then that probably means you're like organizing your thinking about this incorrectly. I'm going to get rid of this so it's back to the way I want it. Good. But that was a great question, and we answered it just by playing around, right? Cool. So far, so good. There's more that I can do to this, right? What are some other things that I can do to this? I can style this, right? This is looking kind of cute. There's like some spacing inside of here, and so I can be like really careful about the widths of things. So what is, tell me about the styling of this box here. Okay. Width is 61%, so that like all the widths are perfectly figured out, so that I get this actual little bit of spacing here. This width is, if I go up to that guy here, this width is 10%, so it's 61%, 10%, and then whatever this is going to be. Oh, I gotta go up to the actual thing that's holding it. Width is 24%. So apparently, the last time I did this, I was very careful with my widths so that I could get that little bit of white space in there. You can play around with your heart's content. This area over here is looking pretty fancy, much fancier than mine is right now. So we can tweak that. right? That looks terrible. And then this up here doesn't really quite line up nicely yet either, so we can play with that. How are we doing? Okay? Yeah? Alright, so we have 25 minutes left. Let's just talk through how we would do this part. Let's just by inspecting it, figure out how we would go about doing that. And then I'll let you get started on your design challenge so that you can just play around on your own. Cool. The first design challenge will be entirely HTML, CSS. And then future ones, you can choose if you're going to be doing iOS or if you can do that in Xcode or whatever. Cool, accordingly. So, but this one we're going to just all make sure we all understand at least basic HTML, CSS. Cool. All right, so let's just do some inspections here. Think about how we would actually do this. So I'm poking around on the internet. I find a feature that I want to add to my website, and let's see how we do that. We just inspect it and we see what we're playing around with. So first of all, I highly recommend that you're using either Chrome or Firefox because they have great development tools. Safari or Internet Explorer or Edge don't really have very good like inspector tools and stuff like that, so I would not use those. And then once we're here, then we can just go through and inspect things and play around with them. So the way that I laid this out, so one thing I didn't talk about is that this is, you see like this isn't a div, and that's not a div, and that's not a div, and that's not a div. They have specific names, like this one is a main, and this one is an aside, and this one is a nav, and this one is a header. Those are all just divs, but you can style them appropriately, and they're kind of clearer in the HTML. So just know that those all could be, you could give your divs fancy names if you wanted to. And then you could target like all the navs and do something with them. Okay. When I'm looking at this, let's see how we style the nav, because that's the biggest thing that's over here. When I look at nav, I click on that in the box, and if I mouse over it, it's going to show me exactly what it is here. And that's looking like what I want to style. So what does it have for styles? It's got this floating and this width and this background color. Probably not too terribly surprising. The floating is, we replaced that with Flexbox. So you can just disregard that. And then nothing. So there's nothing really too terribly interesting going on here. It's got a certain font size that's a little bit bigger. I don't know if I can make this over here larger. No. No. Okay. So let's go into the UL that's inside of this nav. So, so there's one more thing I didn't talk about here. Maybe let's just do that for a second. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to add something here. I'm going to style all of the dot content A. And I'm going to set the color to be red. So what did I just do? Let's talk about, the reason I'm doing this is because of the selector. I want to talk about the selector in particular. So look through on my website that I've got down here and tell me what did I just color red? The links that are inside of something who has a class of content. All right, so you can actually nest your selectors. And so this is saying, find everything that has a class of content, and then inside of that, is what the space means, find all the A's. All right, so notice that these A's here did not get styled. They're not inside of anybody who has a dot content. All right, so you can do selections more interestingly that way. Find all of the blahs inside of the blahs inside of the blahs, etc. That's another way you can do it. Okay? So you'll see I use that here when I say nav UL. So UL is an unordered list. It holds a bulleted list, right? And what do I tell it to do? I tell it to have a list style type of none. And so what that's going to do is that's going to get rid of the bullets that are in the bulleted list. Okay? Got some margin, got some padding, nothing else exciting here. We go into the LIs, and what do those have? Those have a lot of different styling here, I think. So they've got a class of dark, which has changed some colors around. They've got some borders. We didn't really talk about borders, but you can do exactly what you think with that. There's all kinds of options. I'll let you Google it. I changed the line height, so that's the spacing of the line. So these buttons are 2 EMs tall, which is a certain unit, and EM is the height of a line. And so if you notice here, well, actually, you can probably just do this. I inspect that guy here. Right, so if you think about this, right, if you take this amount of space here and you put it above and below, then the line height is, the height of the text is always 1 EM. That's what an EM unit is. It's the height of the text currently. And so to say that the line height is 2 EMs means a double spacing, right? And so you put like half of that above and half of that below. So you can see that kind of here. And then there's some padding as well. So that's where I'm getting the height of those things from. And then, there's some padding for them. Still list object none, blah, blah, blah. So that's how I got that part so far. And there's one more cool effect happening, right? What's my cool effect? Yeah, when I hover, something interesting happens. So is that JavaScript? You can do that with JavaScript, but you don't have to. There's one more type of selector to talk about, and that is a pseudo selector. And so I can say, hey, all of the links that I'm hovering over inside of content. Style them a different way, maybe make them bold, font weight, 700. And then when I hover over it, it gets bold. So that's how you do the hover effect. So for this over here, I wonder if I can see that. See it in this. I view page source, and you can get the HTML for any page. And then if I click on the CSS over here, so then I can see the actual CSS that I'm using. So where is it? It's right here. Nav li hover, I change the background color, I change the color. Now, do any transitions? No. Okay, that's fine. Alright, so do you feel like if you had infinite time, you could recreate exactly this website now? Is there anything that you feel like I've left off that you don't necessarily know how to do? There's one thing that we didn't do. This box here that's holding this code is centered. Yeah? This is a famous problem. How do you center a div in HTML? So, yeah. So if I have an outer div and an inner div, and I want to center the inner one inside the outer one, what I need to do is I need to worry about the margin of the outer one, the inner one. Yeah, let's talk about the box model quick, actually. So this is kind of confusing because there is, I'll leave it the same. This one's good. So the idea behind divs or anything else that's box-like is that it can have a border. We talked about that. It can have padding, which separates the border of the thing from the content of the thing, and then it can also have margin, which separates the outside stuff from the border. Right? So if you have a box and you color that box, it's going to color in, and you don't have any border, it's going to color in everything inside of here, everything inside the dark square. And so if you want to center that stuff, you need to change the way the outside margins are happening, the left and right margins. And so there's a famous line of CSS code, which is to take this pre that's sitting right here, and that element happens to be a pre element, and you can give it margin 0 auto. And so what we're doing here is we're saying margin followed by 2 numbers gives the top and the first number is the top and the bottom margin, and the second number is the left and the right margin. Okay? So don't do anything to give it no top and bottom margin. and automatically distribute the left and the right margin, and that should center it. Now it's a little bit funny because this stuff is over here, because the width of this thing is a little bit too big. So I'm going to take dot content and change its min or max width to be 60%. That should make it a little bit smaller. Ugh, that's terrible. Make it even less, just to illustrate, 50%. Okay. So now this is here, and when I go to the pre, right, there's a pre tag, that's here. Oh, I think I know what to do.
You broke it.
Sure did. Oh, it's because it has full width probably. So when I go to this pre-text, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to center this thing inside of this wall, this column here, but it's not centering, right? So I'm wondering why is it not centering? It looks like it should be centering. This is what this margin zero auto should do. It should center it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to inspect. So I inspect my pre, and I see that it's actually just the full width, and that's the problem here. So I need to give it less than the whole width. So let's maybe make it width 70% of whatever your parent is. So now when I do this, this will look a little bit more centered. If I give it a background color so you can see this. Background color. I don't know. Gray. Just to give it something. So now it looks like it's centering okay. So we can continue to play around with those styles. Questions so far? So one of the things that is weird now that I've changed the width of these things is that these buttons are going, these button images are going off to the right instead of down, which is what I was hoping for in like my final version. So if I were to make you do that, how would you do this? What is a tool that you could use to make things go in a certain direction? So you could use a flex. How would you do it? You'd set this outer box to have display flex. You would set its flex direction to be column. You'd want it to justify content to be, I don't know, maybe stretch or something, so that it like stretches them out. And you'd want its align items, which I think is this one. Justify content, I think is this direction. No, I think align items is along the flex axis, and justify content is the other one. Just look it up. So you could stretch that out, and that would make it look like how you want it to be. Yeah.
You can also display like inline, so just.
You probably want to display block. Inline means throw
Sure,
inline this
yeah,
way.
block.
Yeah. So you can play with all kinds of things to make this do what you want. Yeah? Yeah.
The box that you made has like rounded edges. How did you do that?
Ooh, yeah. How do I make things have rounded edges? So I could, the answer is I would Google it, but I can just tell you in this particular case. That happens to be border radius. And then you give it a certain amount of pixels, and that the pixels that you're giving it in that particular setting is like the radius of the completed circle that you would make if you made this into a circle. Clearly I need like a ton more padding here, right? This P is kind of running off the edge now. So I'd have to play around quite a bit with that. And also like this is way too dark, so this is really hard to read against that, so you probably want to play with the colors some. I mean, you want to choose all the colors. All the colors are terrible. Cool? Okay, so let's take a look at our design challenge, our first one. So if we go to Canvas, the important thing to note here is I don't want you to spend a bajillion years on this. And so I gave people, just in case you have a lot of HTML experience, I gave people a lot of things that they could do. Okay? So this is your first design challenge, is to make this particular thing. You can do it on CodePen, or you can make an actual HTML file if you wanted to. And if you really get too terribly clever, you can give it a hover effect. For all of these things, I will give you some helpful assets that you can click on, and it'll give you like all the text, so you don't have to bother typing in all the text, and it gives you all the images, and I think all the colors too. And anything else that I think might be helpful. So that's what you're doing for homework tonight, is trying to recreate this. Cool? Questions about anything? I don't know. How do you submit it? Submitting nothing. Let me change that. Let's just do this. Let's do it all on CodePen, and I'll have you submit the link. Just share the link with me.
And if you raise that KST, you submit on this as well.
Sorry? Oh, I told you to do that. No, sorry. I guess I told you to do that. How about you can either do this and submit these 3 files if you want to do separate HTML, CSS files, or you can just submit a queries.txt, which also has the link in CodePen. Cool? So I'll make it a file type submission. I'll change the text on that right after this class. Questions? Other questions? Yeah.
It doesn't have to be pixel.
It doesn't have to be pixel perfect. It doesn't even have to be done. Right? I don't want you to spend like a crazy amount of time on this. Like this could potentially take you a super long time to figure all this stuff out. But like some of the things I want to see, like is it appropriately like 3 columns? Like did you do the flex stuff? Is all the stuff there? Is all the content there? Does this image go inside of here? Right? The nestedness of it is super important, right? Like these things should all be here inside of, like clearly there's a box that's holding that stuff. That is then an element in a flex box, which is doing all that stuff, right? There's some like shadows. Do you need to do the shadows? You don't have to. But if you want to learn how to do this, like if you know that as soon as we're done with this one, you're going to go do iOS, then like don't bother going too crazy with this, right? But if you like really want to do good design in HTML, then yeah, try to figure this stuff out, because I think that'll be helpful for you. Other questions? You can also get really fancy, like for example, I think when I had the text here, this is like capital F, lowercase the rest, and there's a way to transform the text so it's all that, or you can just type in capital F, A, C, whatever you want to do. Right, and this thing is like, this little tilde is like higher than it should be. So after this is over, I'll send you my solution, just so you have it kind of. Great. All right, we have a few minutes for you to get started, 8 minutes or so for you to get started, and then we will just work on it tonight for homework. Ready, go. Yeah.
Can I use some feature to
Yeah, it's fine. I think it's probably worth it to make sure you understand this stuff, because they're probably going to ask you it on a quiz at some point. But can if you want, maybe do both to see.
Or something and like.
Well, I think for this one it's simple enough that you probably should just get a little bit of experience. I think after this, I'm totally up to you doing using libraries. And eventually we'll do, like one of the design challenges is going to be, here is some JSON that you will get that's randomly generated. And it hands it like, when you do an API request, it like gives you that, now make this layout that is appropriate, like, but it's randomly generated content, so you don't necessarily know exactly how it's going to be generated, you know what I mean? Dude, it would make sense to use a library inside, or just use like a whole bunch of JavaScript. Yeah.
Like, how do you, like, these files are things you download off your computer? So is it possible to, like...
Oh, gosh. No. Can you put things on there? Let's see here.
Actually, it's probably a good one.
Oh, if you have a CodePen Pro account, you can.
But I looked that up and there's like this one page which just hosts your pictures forever and you can just like divide with image source.
It's a little nauseous though. This might be faster to just do with an index HTML file. So, if you have, like, you had to download a text editor, right, so you have got that. So one thing you can do is you can go to, you can make a file, it's an HTML file. And so this is an index.html, and then there's a styles.css to hold my styles in. Go here and go here. And we didn't talk too much about we didn't talk at all about actual HTML files, but the way that they work is they're grouped, the topmost tag is an HTML tag, and then inside of that there's always two tags, a head and a body. This has all the stuff we talked about, that's the body, the actual HTML content. And then inside the head you can give things like a style sheet, a link tag, which is a relation style sheet. It's located here, and then I can host my style sheet that way. So you can, if you wanted to just do that, then you wouldn't have to worry about the images working out in a particular way. So the important lines here are HTML, head, and then this style sheet here. And then over here, just make sure this is in the same file.
And how does like the file structure work in terms of like the images? Like when do we do like slash or like when do you?
Oh yeah, so what I did here, you'll see there's an image at some point, right? And you see I have like img slash this. And so I happen to have related dots, so I have an img folder. So index is here, then there's an img folder, and then there's calendar. So you can do like, this means start from the current directory, go into the img folder, and then look for the calendar folder. So that's a way to do it. But you don't have to put things in different folders when it's this small.
So there's no difference between dots?
I don't think so. I think dot slash means the current folder, so I think I can also do that. It will still work totally fine.
Yeah, I just made my account.
And I think I can, for this, I think I can just remove that.
So I'm using the little, things on here. I'll upload more. Can I upload more?
So the other thing that I want you to do, keep in mind, for the design challenges, I wanted you to keep a text file that holds all of your Google queries. Just want to see what sort of things you are searching for as you're going about this. Just keep that in mind as you're working through this. Yeah.
So how do we actually go from here to display?
Yeah, so you just have to open that file in a browser. So so the way that if I'm working from the terminal, I can say open index.html. And that would open it up, and there it is. And then if I, see how, notice this URL is file://stuff, right? And so then I can go over to here, change things, and just go over and refresh the browser.
Just do it first.
Yeah, do it that way.
So, I started doing that yesterday, so how to access them. And I don't know, I just did not in superstructure. Is there,
Did you want me to? Oh, that's great, yeah, totally.
is that how it
That's how I did it, yeah.
looks like?
Well, maybe you can tweak it, right? You can change, like, you could Google how to lower a superscript or something like that.
Because that's what
I think it's fine. It's probably fine the way it is, to get it a little bit lower.
I can just, when I can, so I just have that special.
Totally, yeah.
Do you guys put the result line or the release?
I put them online. I want to
IMGDB. You can just, and that, if it works, great, it works.
There's all kinds of image hosting websites.